My name is Lanny Swerdlow. I'm a registered nurse, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on my podcast, Lanny Sense. It's beyond common sense. It is Lanny Sense. And we're going to be taking a look at my various podcasts and the various issues that are making our 2024 election season, so shall we say, interesting. Anyway, today we're going to talk about immigration. And the title is Immigration Will Save, Not Destroy America. The bipartisan Senate Border Security Bill did not get passed as House Republicans and Donald Trump opposed it. It must have been really, really good, because their opposition was not that it didn't have a good chance of bringing order to the ongoing border catastrophe, but that if enacted, it might eliminate the border crisis as a major 2024 election issue. Even if it did pass, it has to be seen as only a temporary measure, a tourniquet, if you will. And as an RN, I know that tourniquets are only temporary. The Senate Border Security Bill will have slowed immigration, no doubt, from Central America and South America and who knows where else, but it wouldn't stop it. Immigrants did not stop coming to the United States at the turn of the 20th century, even though massive anti-immigration sentiment was roiling the country. From the fear in California that Japanese workers would cost white workers farming jobs and depress wages, to the protests and riots on the East Coast against the Irish and other European immigrants fleeing the famine and political upheavals on the other side of the North Atlantic, they just kept coming and coming and coming. From 1900 to 1914, almost 10 million immigrants came to the United States via Ellis Island in the port of New York. Others came in through other ports of entry, many legally, many illegally. Since the illegals were not counted, the total number of immigrants is most likely considerably higher than just those who came in via Ellis Island. Today's number of immigrants may seem high, but it's not all that much out of line with the number of immigrants coming to the U.S. at the turn of the 20th century. The population then of the U.S. was much smaller, so those immigrants made up a greater percentage of the total U.S. population than the immigrants coming in today. The fear and frenzy embroiling the United States today about immigrants is totally disingenuous, especially considering that close to 40% of all current U.S. citizens can trace at least one of their ancestors to Ellis Island, and an even higher percentage if immigration from all over the United States is considered. During the period of peak immigration at the turn of the 20th century, nearly 3/4 of all immigrants that entered the United States came through the port of New York. New York didn't throw an intolerant hissy fit over the new arrivals and didn't put them on buses and send them to Texas and Florida. Rather, they were allowed to stay where they disembarked. It is not surprising, then, that an estimated 3/4 of New York City's population at the time consisted of new immigrants and first-generation Americans. Although many Americans didn't want them here, employers did. Low-paying, strenuous, and debilitating jobs in the infamous sweatshops were available, along with jobs as dock workers, servants, tailors, shoemakers, brewers, and salespersons. The conditions that these earlier immigrants experienced were as exceedingly harsh, with no help from the government. But at least at that time, the government didn't have a policy of separating children from their parents in revenge for them having the tenacity to come here. What is happening today happened before, but today it's flipped on its head from what happened before. In the paper issued by the conservative Cato Institute entitled A Brief History of U.S. Immigration Policy from the Colonial Period to the Present Day, the authors noted that the opposition to immigration at the turn of the century came from, quote, progressives who argued that immigrants impeded the achievement of an ideal society, committed crimes, and abused welfare. Others proposed that the government had a duty to protect natives from immigrants who supposedly depressed innovation and lowered Native American wages. End quote. Sound familiar? Except today it is progressives who are recognizing the benefits of immigration and want to allow immigrants into the country, and conservatives who don't want them here and want to build a wall which ranges in cost from 25 to 75 billion. Not that the cost should concern everyone, because we all know Mexico is going to pay for it, right? Rather than seeing today's immigrants as a threat, we should see them as the same source of resourcefulness, vitality, dependability, and steadfastness that characterized the immigrants that came to this country 100 years ago. Immigrants, rather than being a drain on America's resources, are the vital reserve replenishing them. With America's aging population and low birth rate, fewer workers are paying to support the rising costs of Social Security and Medicare programs. In 1960, there were 5.1 workers paying into the Social Security system for each person drawing Social Security. Today, in 2022, there were only 2.7. The outcome is that benefits paid out have outpaced payments coming in since 2021. The trust fund is expected to be depleted by 2033, resulting in 66 million Social Security recipients having their benefits cut by almost 25%. Medicare is in the same boat as it struggles to keep its head above water, with money expected to run out in 2031, resulting in an 11% pay cut to healthcare providers. A Harris poll found that Americans know what is going on, as 71% believed that these programs will run out of money in their lifetimes. Most fixes that are being floated involve increasing taxes, cutting benefits, or a combination of the two. What no one seems to be considering is bringing new money into the programs by allowing, even encouraging, immigration. The average age of newly arriving immigrants is 31. Do the math. We need young immigrants who will pay for decades into both the trust funds for Social Security and Medicare, not to mention more tax dollars for everything else. It's not like there is a scarcity of jobs either. With over 8.5 million job openings, immigrants are a lifeline to keeping businesses running and producing the goods and services Americans need and want. It makes good economic sense as well. Consider the cost for raising a child to the age of 18 in the United States is over $300,000, and that doesn't include the cost of education. For immigrants, these costs have already been paid by their home country. So by allowing immigrants in this country to work, we are saving literally hundreds of billions of dollars raising and educating children to adults. Another very significant benefit of allowing immigrants into our country is that they will be spending the money they earn on goods and services, increasing the number of jobs, all the while also increasing the country's GDP. It is truly a classic win-win scenario, but it does call for large-scale, coordinated government and private sector response on the local, state, and national level. Just about every state needs workers, some more than others. When immigrants arrive, many have family members or friends already living here that they can stay with. If they don't, they should be taken to immigration centers in different states where they will be housed and integrated into their communities. Instead of spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on a wall that won't work all that well anyway, Spending the money instead on providing housing and support will streamline their assimilation into the economy and start them on the path to a better life while providing the resources to continue the resilience of our country's economy. Whether living with friends or family members or housed in temporary immigration housing, if they already have job-ready skills, they can be placed in those positions immediately. Many will not, and they will be placed in job training programs for the jobs that are available in the areas that they have been placed. From factory and production distribution workers to healthcare providers and more, immigrants can provide the resources to not only snatch Social Security and Medicare from the fiscal cliff they are close to going over, but can reinvigorate the country with the same attitude and spirit that our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents brought to this country not all that long ago.